Hello, everyone. This is Khurram Rafiq. I'm your host and CEO of Neighbors. We are a digital first extended warranty company focused on the enterprise customer. For our channel partners, we have an amazing program to drive additional revenue, amplify their brands, as well as build customer loyalty. Let me start by saying that roughly half of the US economy is small and medium businesses, or that's how it's classified. And the vast majority of those small and medium businesses use managed service providers, MSPs, or value added resellers as their outsourced IT departments. As such, MSPs and VARs, collectively known as channel partners, play a very critical role in pushing out the latest and greatest of technologies. This podcast is really about the channel partner community. It's about understanding the challenges that our channel partners face and how they think about problems and how they think about solving them. So, with that, I will welcome my very special guest, Zach Paulson. Zach is the CEO of True IT, based in Fargo, North Dakota. Let's get started with yourself. So, tell us about Zach Paulson before we talk about True IT. And how did you get interested in IT?
Yeah, so I have kind of a strange direction to IT. I don't have a degree in technology. I was actually going to college thinking I wanted to be a pharmacist. And I remember the lab I was sitting in, and I looked around at the other people in the lab, and they were great people, but they were a very different personality from me. And I said, I am in the wrong room. This is not what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so nobody told me about business. Nobody really told me about a technology degree. So rather than try to investigate any other degrees, I actually just dropped out of college. I was working at Best Buy at the time, and I love technology. I love gadgets. I was a big car audio enthusiast, and so I just started working in Best Buy and all the different options that were out there, and found I really loved the thing I loved the most is when people left with their gadget, the smile on their face, the excitement they had with the new technology they were about to go use. And I was like, man, I like that. I want to keep doing something along those lines. And through a series of events, I ended up meeting a couple of my business partners that I'm still partners with today. And they said they needed somebody that understood business and how to sell and how to work with people. And they were the technical geeks. They were the brains behind the operation. And I said, well, I think I can help you with that. So the rest is history. Here I am 20 years later working in technology and running a managed service company.
That is a very fascinating story. And you believe it or not, our first guest was on the show, also worked for Best Buy. So there's a pattern emerging here. Best Buy has given birth to a lot of technology leaders' careers. So, and I think for the rightful reasons, like they are, as we talked about the SMB channel, they're the most important consumer channel. So what you learn there is highly applicable and can be transferred over to the SMB side. So absolutely. You had one job and then you started your own business. Is that correct?
So there was a little transition in between there. So what ended up happening was September 11th hit 2001 and the retail market tanked. And my dream was to go on to have my own store someday and become a manager of a Best Buy. That was what I was going to do. Well, my dreams were shattered when our country had the biggest devastation in a half a century. And so when that happened, I found myself searching because they laid off a bunch of people. And so I ended up taking a small stint in insurance for a short period of time. Found out that was not what I wanted to do. It was actually like a supplemental insurance. So I always joke that it was the first insurance you canceled and it was the last insurance you bought. So it was a tough gig, but I learned a lot. And then when I met my two business partners, I worked with them for about 8 years, and then eventually they brought me into the business, and we formed the business from there. And so there was that short little stint of insurance in between there.
I think it's super courageous of you to drop out at such a young age. I could not think like that. I had to wait for years and years to start my own company, but actually I tried multiple times. But to have that sort of vision and clarity at such a young age that you're like, nope, this is not me. That's very impressive. That explains your comfort level in being a leader. And I always imagined MSPs would be frazzled, and it's a services industry, getting calls, and you're busy, but when I talk to you, you're like calm like Yoda. So I guess that you've always had that clarity, it seems like.
Well, I don't know. My parents thought I was nuts. My parents were both teachers, so for me to drop out of college was like the end of the world. But it worked out. It was one of those things where I've always been willing to take risks, but I've always calculated the costs. Like my brain always immediately goes to, well, what's the worst that could happen? And as long as you can live with whatever the worst that could happen, you may as well try it, right? What could go wrong?
You know, a lot of people would love to have that mindset. You make it sound very easy, but it's it's not. So kudos to you. You know,
Thank
you
you.
have this special ability. So more power to you.
Thank you.
Now we kind of hinted at the beginning of True IT. Was this bootstrapped, or did you get any family, friends, and family to invest with you?
So the way we formed True IT was we actually went to one of our best customers and we said to him, hey, you've tried a bunch of other IT companies in town. You've got a lot of opinions about what works, what didn't work. You ever thought of owning one? And he said, well, I've tried everybody else. Yeah, sure, let's try to build this. So he invested some capital. It's funny, at the time it seemed like a lot of money. And now I look back at it and I'm like, oh, it was just a little bit of money. But he invested some money. He invested some of his business advice in us. He became a member of our board, of course, and he consulted with us quite frequently about how business works. And he really taught us how to build a profitable enterprise. And out of that, we grew to about 2017, and we had hit kind of about a $3 million revenue plateau. That's kind of where MSPs have to get to, and then there's a plateau for a while to break through that. And we hit that $3 million plateau, but we were pretty profitable doing so. And so we had one of our customers who was selling. They were going to sell their business. They were going to get out of the business. And we were helping them with their network and separating off their network. And all of a sudden, as they're going through the process of selling the business, we find out their sale fell through. The check bounced. They literally bounced an earnest money check to this company. So obviously, it was not a long-term success there. And so I reached out to the CEO and I said, hey, his name was Eric. I said, Eric, what are we going to do? You know, like you guys must be in a really tough position. Is there any way I can help? And we ended the conversation with, well, maybe we could buy you. And this business was not in the managed IT space. It was in software consulting. They did Microsoft Dynamics consulting. And we figured, how hard could it be? They're pretty much the same type of business. So we were able to get it purchased. We were able to work with our business partner, and we got it funded, and we bought that business. And so that turned out to be quite an amazing experiment where it was very different from managed services. And we spent several years after that trying to keep the company out of bankruptcy because it was so different. So.
Do you specialize in any particular verticals, or do you go across?
So we're in North Dakota, which is not a very highly populated state. So we've always kind of had to really help any businesses. Anybody that came to us, we could typically help them, whether they were large or small. But we do seem to have a higher concentration in larger nonprofits. For whatever reason, we kind of get the way they work. We really understand that, you know, money is of course an issue, but they're willing to spend money so long as it's reliable. And we were kind of a cloud first organization. When we started, it was all managed services and it was all cloud. And so our motto was, if it could be in the cloud, it should be in the cloud. And that really works well with that nonprofit space. There's some other organizations too, of course, professional services, manufacturing, several of those where that works really well. And that kind of seems to be our primary bread and butter for our company.
Do you agree with the characterization that I made about the channel partners being so important, being the last mile between large OEMs and cloud companies and what have you, and the SMB segment, which happens to be a very large segment? And if you agree with that, how do you think channel partners influence the evolution of technology?
Yeah, I think the channel is huge. You know, when you think about our customers are not who the large corporate sales departments are going after. You know, they're as small as 5 users and maybe as large as 500 users. So we're not talking very large companies. The Microsofts, the Googles, the Amazons of the world are not calling those mom and pop plumber organizations or small nonprofits and trying to get their business. And so usually what happens is those places are untouchable from a corporate enterprise standpoint. And that's really where the channel comes in. You know, when we're working with those customers, they don't go out to the website and see what Microsoft has to say. They ask us, what would you do? And we have to treat them not only with what we can support, but also with what we would recommend to our friends and family. We have to support this stuff. We have an internal philosophy where we dog food everything. So we wouldn't put anything on you that we wouldn't use internally as our organization. And so we can honestly say we've been there, we've done that, and you can't get that level of rapport through just a sales channel, not using the channel. And that's really where I feel like the channel is definitely that last mile, and in order to tap into it, you have to tap into the managed service provider.
Tell us how your values, your core values of True IT, make a difference in the customers' lives.
Yeah, so True IT has three core values. Number one is warm fuzzies. Technology has always been cold and scary. Yeah, we all have those stories about mom or grandma or somebody that's just scared of technology. So it was within us right away to put into our service model and put into our culture the warm and fuzzy feeling you get whenever you work with really good customer service. So we're always driving to make technology warm and fuzzy. We may not be able to make the problems go away. We may not be able to make the bad news go away. But much like you'd rather hear a bad diagnosis and then be able to deal with it, we apply that philosophy to our IT service too. We're going to give you the news, and it may be bad news, but we're going to give you solutions, and we're going to treat you like we would treat our friends and family. So that's our first core value. Our second core value is loyalty. And the way we look at loyalty is we're in their business. So whether it's that nonprofit or the manufacturing firm or the professional services firm, we are that nonprofit or we are that manufacturing facility. We just happen to be the IT division of it. And so we really look at it through the lens of we're part of their business. We just happen to have the True IT moniker. We just happen to have 30 or 40 other clients we work with, but we do the same manufacturing they do. We just do it by helping them with their technology. Yeah, and our third core value is Kaizen, and that's a Japanese word that literally means constant, never-ending improvement. And so we always kind of look at something like, we're going to make a mistake, or maybe something isn't going to go as planned. And so, in fact, I even promise that to our new customers. I say, I'll make you a promise. We'll make a mistake. We'll mess something up. But the difference between True IT and many others, we're not going to try to cover up our mistakes. We're going to try to just talk about them, talk about the reality that everybody has those issues and how do we work for the better. Or maybe we do something really well and it works flawlessly, but the challenge we run into is there was a better way to do it, or we learned something along the way. So we take that constant, never-ending improvement and we build that into our company culture. We always try to figure out, is there a way things can be done better, faster, stronger, etc.? And if so, let's do that. Let's continue to get better. And I can't remember the percentage compounding, but if you improve just 1% of a day, 1% a day versus even just one time 100% a year, you'll outpace yourself by doing 1% a day. So that's really what we look at as a company. And the same thing is true with our customers. We challenge them to continually improve their technology, because if they just every 3 years cycle stuff out, that isn't going to fix everything. That's actually just going to make your 3 years, you're going to have a peak, and then it's just going to slide down after that until you get to this trough, and then you're going to go back up 3 years. And that's not how it should work. We want to keep it as level set as possible, and that's how you do that with constant, never-ending improvement.
Wow, that's very smart of you to be using Kaizen and thinking about the framework. I'm a big fan of Kaizen myself, and I saw this case study about how Harley Davidson used Kaizen to really improve their production line.
Mm-hmm.
And it made a big difference. That's amazing. I think that's fantastic. You bring it to life in your practice in MSP business. So let's switch gears. How do you define digital transformation?
Yeah, so digital transformation is a word thrown around, and it's interesting you ask how to define it, because I think if you ask 10 people how to define digital transformation, you may get 12 answers. And so the way I look at it, I guess, is just really taking what we do in business and turning it into using technology to accomplish that. And sometimes that's automation, sometimes that is simply just taking and digitizing things. But really what I want to see from a digital transformation perspective is to take those business processes that we do, the things that humans can do, but they're very monotonous and ongoing, and turn those into processes that technology can take care of, and then take those only human-specific things and make sure only humans are working on it. Elon Musk is really passionate about that. He said, if we can automate it, if we can turn it into technology, let's do it, because chances are those are the things that humans don't like doing. And then let's take the things that challenge the human being and put the human being on those tasks. And so in my mind, digital transformation is all about taking that monotony out of the world and putting that into the terms of the technology, because that doesn't complain, and then take the people and put them on things that only people can do.
I think that's a very good response. You simplified it. You don't have to. You don't have to make it sound complicated. It is complicated in execution, but I think from a definition perspective, it should be as straightforward as you put it. So, what is the role that MSPs play or channel community plays in digital transformation of the American mid market?
Yeah, I think MSPs have a role. I don't know that they're as strong in digital transformation as they maybe are in readiness for clients. There's a lot of clients we see that when we bring them in, maybe they don't have their technology very stable, maybe it's not very up to date. You got to get them there first. So first thing we always do is a discovery to kind of figure out where are you according to the baseline, according to the set of standards, and then how do we get you stable? Because a business that is constantly in a set of fires and you're just always putting stuff out, you're never going to get them to digitally transform. We could get you the coolest software in the whole world, but if nothing works, you're never going to get a chance to use the software. Where I really think digital transformation comes in is a lot of these software providers. Software providers, that was what we found out with this software consulting firm we acquired. They're the ones that are bringing about the processes and bringing them digitized and bringing them into the world of digital transformation. But if the technology, if the backbone, if the network, if all the things that everything rides on is not functioning correctly, you're not even going to get off the ground. And so I think MSPs are the stability layer, and adding that level of consistency and support that needs to be there to provide digital transformation in the first place.
No, I like that answer. I think that's very introspective. I think you are placing yourself in very precisely. And you're right. A business may want to think that they are digitally transforming themselves by purchasing a new line of business software, like an EMR or a restaurant buying payment software from Square. But if their backend, the foundation upon which everything stands, is not stable, they won't be successful. And I think
Right.
that's where you play a role. But then I also believe that you play the next level role where you actually work with them to get the line of business software up and running. And
True.
so you kind of support them as their IT department.
Yep.
So no conversation these days is complete without saying the word AI. So
True.
has it changed anything for you yet? And where do you see things going?
Yeah, actually it has. It's been, what people don't realize is that before ChatGPT became a household name, AI was really revolutionizing a lot of the ways that these technologies worked in the first place. So obviously you can't read the news without hearing about a security breach nowadays, but AI has been involved on both the defensive and offensive sides of security for many, many years. And what we're seeing is a lot of the tools that are now in place protecting environments are using artificial intelligence to think kind of outside the box, think beyond the human eyes and ears, and help thwart these threats before they even get into the systems. And so we're seeing in a lot of the tools that we use. Now we are starting to see with ChatGPT, we're starting to see the communications piece come around, and that's equally cool and equally scary at the same time. In my opinion, the cool part is these things start to sound like we do, and they are able to write things and compose things and research things at a speed that just is beyond human capability. But the scary part is too is they're also able to communicate to us in a deceptive manner in that blows human capability out of the water too. It used to be if you got an email and it was poor English and it told you to upload some generic email file or click on a link, you could quickly see, this person doesn't appear to be legitimate. But nowadays with ChatGPT or some of those learning natural language programming, you're getting some deceptive outreaches. You're even getting AI building offensive tactics, and that's going to get scarier and tougher to spot in the future.
That's very interesting because that's the negative use of AI. So
Yeah.
you're saying that both the good use of AI as a defensive mechanism and the bad use of AI as an offensive mechanism I have started to actually gain traction. And
Mm-hmm.
so we've got to be on our toes, which brings us to I would say the most, or one of the most hot topics in the MSP arena or channel arena, cybersecurity.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this. What are the calls? What kind of cybersecurity issues are the top of mind for you?
Yeah, so number one, email is still the number one threat vector. They say 80 to 90% of compromises come through some form of phishing attack. So right top of mind, we think email. But we're also seeing it in different forms. There's vishing, which is with a V, and that's voicemail. So you're getting a lot of voicemail phishing nowadays, where people will call you. It's no longer you've won the lottery and it's no longer your car's expired, but now your taxes are out of date or your debt could be reconciled or your student loans or your ERC credits. You're also getting a lot of phone phishing. Of course, we've had that for a long time. But probably the newest one that I've seen is Teams. You can fish on Teams now. And Teams has kind of been that trusted source. If you got a message on Teams, you didn't question it. Well, now if your Teams is open to the world, you could get a phishing attempt there. And we're actually seeing compromises happen that way. So cybersecurity is one of those things that just never seems like once we feel like we've got it licked, they come out with a technique nobody could have even dreamed of.
I would imagine teams coming from Microsoft should have better security measures, but that's not the case.
It's not the case because anybody can get an Office 365 account, and that's the challenge. Is there's when like Twitter tried to add the little blue check mark, it's kind of anybody can get a little blue check mark, and so if you go ahead and get an Office 365 account and you're deemed legitimate, there's not really any backup to who you are or why you exist. And now if you find somebody that has their Teams just open to the world, you can ping them a message and you can do enough research through LinkedIn and some other social network gathering where you can start to kind of understand the person you're talking to. And they're getting pretty sophisticated. They really are.
In the channel ecosystem, name the vendor you think that does an outstanding job building the channel community and working with them.
Sure. Yeah. Microsoft has done a lot. They're always charging forward. So I'd be remiss not to mention them. But I would also say some of the security vendors. One of them that sticks in mind is SentinelOne. SentinelOne really was not even on the marketplace a few years ago, and now all of a sudden in the MSP community specifically, SentinelOne is one of our strongest vendors when it comes to security. They just are rock solid. They don't let anything through. They're built around the MSP channel, and then they're built with the small business in mind. So the idea that you can come in as a 5-person network and have enterprise grade security, or you can be an organization 5,000 deep and deploy SentinelOne. It's just been that one to me is they've done a fantastic job. Yeah.
You must have used a long list of tools being an MSP. What has been your favorite and why? Or UI, UX, usefulness, functionality? Pick one,
Sure.
please.
Oh, that's a tough one. Let's see. Tools wise, so I have actually, we didn't talk about kind of some of the other companies that I've been involved with. But one of the tools we created was Connect Booster. So I don't know if you're familiar with Connect Booster at all. But something that made that so unique is when we first launched the idea of Connect Booster, there was nobody doing payments on a recurring basis. It was still people were sending invoices, sometimes even paper back in those days, and getting paid. And so we built a simple little app to do that. I still think that product was an amazing tool, and it's doing fantastic today. And it was recently bought out by Kaseya, and it's been a fantastic tool. That one I think made a lot of game-changing strides in the marketplace. IT Glue is another one. That one really, you talk to just about any managed service provider for documentation, and they're kind of the leader. They've done a great job being kind of that name brand for documentation.
Name top 3 vendors that come to your mind when I say PSA.
Well, ConnectWise, because we're on it. Probably Kaseya, because they're the next biggest, and then they bought Datto. So, is there anybody left?
Okay, that's a good answer. What is your preferred cybersecurity tech stack?
Yeah. So right now, our tech stack is SentinelOne for EDR. Then we use DNS filter for web filtering. And then we use Iron Scales for anti-phishing, Proofpoint for anti-spam, and then we back it up with a Drop Suite product that does the Office 365 backup. And then security awareness we use in FEMA. That's our security stack today.
Teams or Zoom?
Teams.
And that's because of the integration that Teams has with the rest of Microsoft?
Yeah, we're pretty much a Microsoft shop all the way through to our software consulting side. So everything we do is in the Microsoft world. Zoom is a really cool product, and honestly, when COVID came out, they were definitely the market dominant. But it just shows you how powerful Microsoft can be when they get behind something.
How do you find work-life balance?
Yeah, so I've been a business owner well, I feel like I've been a business owner for 20 years. I suppose it hasn't been quite as long. It's been 13, 14, but I feel like I've always operated with an integrated life, not necessarily a balance. I don't think you can spend 8 to 5 working and then 5 to 8 the next morning taking care of yourself. I think you've kind of got to integrate it. I've read a lot of emails while waiting in line at Disney World or on a vacation just at night winding down. I feel like you got to make sure that you're present. To me, that's the most important part about work-life balance is just be where you're at, not somewhere else when you're with somebody. So when I'm with my family, I'm with my family. When I'm at work, I'm at work. And once in a while, I have to blend those two in terms of time frames. But I try to be very distinctive and let people know, hey, I'm going to go do some work for now, or hey, I'm going to go check out and sit over there for 2 hours and catch up on emails. Because if I can do that, then I can be present with you later.
Share a lesson that you have learned in your entrepreneurial life.
Funny saying I like to say is budget for weird. And what I mean by that is there is a lot of stuff you're never going to expect that's going to come your way in business ownership. And just when you think you have a handle on something is about the time something you never could have anticipated is going to come your way. And so much like we talked about earlier about being ready for opportunities, you also have to be ready for disasters and really thinking through how would I pivot and how would I handle this. And so I call it budget for weird, is just to make sure you always have margins of error that can allow for something you're not expecting. And you can never really anticipate everything, but as long as you're ready for something strange to happen, you aren't as thrown off guard when it happens. So.
That is actually very widely applicable, very transferable
Mhm.
lesson. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For the viewers of this show, why should they work with True IT?
Yeah, so for True IT, our motto has always kind of been technology that works. And somebody that works with us, I would want them to feel like technology is important to their business and that they want it to work and that they're willing to make the investment to make it work. It doesn't always mean money, because actually you can throw a ton of money at me and never do your part of it and it won't work. It'll just, I'll make money and you'll be frustrated. So really, to work with True IT means to work in a way that your technology will work. We're going to build a partnership together. We're going to work towards a prescriptive offering, an offering we can guarantee because we've done it across many clients, but it's going to require an investment. It's going to require both sides working together. And so if you want to work with True IT, we'd love to have you, but we do have a set of standards. We have a way it's got to work. And if you're up for that, you're going to get good service. And you're going to get things that function well for you.
Can people who are thinking about True IT, can they talk to you? Can they have a consultation?
Absolutely. And what's unique to True IT is we don't have a really deep sales channel either. You're likely going to talk to me or somebody that's very close to me to talk about what your IT picture looks like. And you're definitely going to have my business partner involved along the way from a service management side too. So we may not be a small MSP, but we're a very personalized MSP. You get to work with stakeholders within the company that are incredibly engaged in working with you. And we're kind of interviewing you because, like I said, it's a two-way street. So we need to make sure that you're involved and we're involved. So absolutely, if they reach out, you'll likely talk to me and we'll get you on the path you need to go.
And how can anyone get in touch with you?
Probably the easiest way is to go to our website, just www.trueit.com, or give us a call, which you can find that on the website as well. We've got a form on there. You can fill that out, say you're interested in talking with us, and we'll take care of you.
Sounds good. What do you think about extended warranties in terms of device lifecycle management?
Probably nowadays, more than anything, we've been accustomed to this with our phones, right? We've all broken screens, we've all dropped phones, we've lost them in a lake or whatever. And I think not only the warranty against the device failing, but also that accidental damage and recovery is really important. We live in a world now where being without your device for very long is near disastrous. And so where I think warranty coverage comes in that's really nice, especially ones that offer advanced replacement or some sort of quick turnaround, it gets us back and working quicker. And so I think they're a great option to have. And certainly you want to extend beyond a year or whatnot, because I mean, most people don't have in their budget to recycle their device every year. You want to make sure you're covered for at least the period of time you can anticipate using the device.
You can have all sorts of latest greatest technology like AI or what have you, but then everything needs hardware to run on, and
Yes.
hardware is always going to be prone to a fall or some sort of a manufacturer malfunction. So, and you need protection against that.
Yep.
Thank you so much, Zach. It was a pleasure having you, and wish you best of luck.
Likewise. Thank you, Kuram. It's been a pleasure getting to know you, and we wish you the best of luck too as you cover the world in warranties. So.
Thank you. We're all together in it.